everyone. We're going to be starting a series in the book of Revelation, and man, if there is a book in the Bible that people are eager to learn about or confused by, it is Revelation. So I want to just share with you a couple things before we study to hopefully get you excited about it and also be prepared about it. Why should we study the book of Revelation? Well, there's several reasons. First, it's not only the culmination of human history, but it's also the culmination of redemptive history. So everything in the whole Bible and all of human history comes to a head, and it's seen in the end times theology that Revelation presents. Secondly, it's the only book of the Bible with an explicit promise from God to bless those who preach it and study it and listen to it. So if you want to be blessed by God, there's a special blessing that comes to God's people when they hear and study and take seriously the book of Revelation. Thirdly, it's meant to be a great encouragement to Christians throughout history. The theme of Revelation is that Jesus is going to redeem his people, punish the wicked, and bring about total victory. Which is a shame because often this book is viewed as a fearful and scary book, but it was meant to be an encouragement to God's people throughout church history. So obviously the book of Revelation is seen as mysterious for lots of reasons. I want to give you a couple of reasons that the book of Revelation can be difficult to understand. Like I said, it's the final book of the entire Bible, so all of the plot lines, all of the drama of the entire Bible, they meet up here in Revelation. There are 404 verses in the book of Revelation, and out of those 404 verses, there are somewhere between 300 to 500 allusions to the Old Testament in those 404 verses. So if you don't know the Old Testament, Revelation is going to be difficult for you. Likewise, eschatology or end times theology is written about by all throughout the New Testament. Jesus talks about it, Paul talks about it, Peter and Jude and others, they talk about it. So unless you know the New Testament, there's going to be passages that you won't understand in Revelation. So one of the reasons it's hard to understand Revelation is you really have to have a good grasp of the entire Bible. And that makes it a challenge for us to understand the book of Revelation. Another reason that Revelation is hard for us to understand times is there's just so many different theological interpretations of it. Just consider a few of these perspectives. Some people view Revelation as futurist. That means that it's all going to happen in the future. Some view it as preterist. That means that it's all happened in the past. Others view it as idealist, meaning that it just teaches us some ideals and some morals. If you add to that, there are post-millennialists and pre-millennialists and amillennialist, and it's not even important at this point that you understand what those terms are, but you just see that there's a lot of different opinions out there. And all of those things that I just mentioned, they all have their own subcategories and subgenres and factions within them. And so if you ask 10 different theologians what Revelation is about, you'll get 10 different answers sometimes. And so just the sheer amount of different thoughts and opinions makes Revelation a challenge for us. The third reason that Revelation can be very difficult for us is all of the symbolism in the book. Before you can really get into the book, you've got to come to some conclusion about what you're going to do with its imagery. Is it all literal? Is it all metaphorical? Is there some blend of both? You have to make a decision about that. In Revelation, there are special numbers, special colors, special animals, other images, and so all of the imagery and the symbolism can make it difficult to understand the book. Another reason about Revelation that can make it tricky is there are actually parts where God instructs John not to write certain things down. So there are certain pieces of the puzzle that God just doesn't even want us to have. And lastly, I think misconceptions about the book of Revelation make it difficult for us to understand. The first misconception about the book of Revelation is what the word apocalypse even means. In our day, apocalypse has come to mean the end of the world, but in Greek, apokalypso doesn't mean that. It means an unveiling or an uncovering, a revelation, and that's where the name of the book comes from. So are there answers to the questions about the end of the world in the book of Revelation? Sure, but the main focus isn't just to give us information about the end of the world. The main information in the book of Revelation is to uncover something, which leads us to the second misconception, is what is being revealed. And we see this in what people say about the title of the book. Most people refer to this as the book of Revelations, plural. But the actual title is the book of Revelation, singular. And you may be thinking, what difference does that make? But it actually makes a great deal of difference. If it's revelations, plural, then what's being revealed is the Antichrist and parts of the end times agenda and other mysteries. But if it's a singular revelation, then only one thing or one person is being revealed. And it's one revelation. It's the revelation of Jesus Christ. In the book of Revelation, we see Jesus in his glory, in his power, in his authority, in total victory. We get glimpses of that in his earthly ministry. But it's not until Revelation that we see him as he is fully. It's the revelation of who Jesus is. Are there clues about end times events? Yes. But if we take our eyes off of Jesus, then we're missing what is being revealed because it's his revelation. As I mentioned before, this is a complex question as there are many different categories, all with their own little subcategories and subcategories of that. I want to approach Revelation with the same mindset as I approach any other book of the Bible. I want to let the Bible interpret itself without me reading it through a lens of any theological camp. In other words, even though I have a theological leaning, I'm not setting out to prove my theological view or disprove other people's. My goal is to study the scriptures to find the clearest meaning about the end times, how we can apply that to our daily lives, and most importantly, how that helps us see Jesus as the exalted King of Kings. As far as what I can say about my end times theology, let me just share with you a couple of verses from 1 John. 1 John 2:28 says this, "Now little children, abide in Jesus, so that when he appears we may have confidence and not shrink away from him in shame at his coming." A few verses later in chapter 3, John tells us that if we have the hope of Jesus coming back for us, we should purify ourselves. We should be ready and we should be holy. So my end times theology is this: Jesus is coming. He can come whenever he chooses, however he chooses. We are to be watchful and ready so that when he comes, we're not ashamed to see our King face to face. So I'm excited to begin preaching this great book of the Bible. I'm nervous. It's a monumental undertaking. I ask you to pray for me as I preach this great book. But I want to invite you to come worship with us on Sunday mornings as we begin to explore the revelation of Jesus Christ. You'll be blessed when you do.